Well, tomorrow we start reading Genesis 1 and 2, and go ahead and read the text, and I'll join you after you read it, and we'll talk about the original first days of creation. As we read the Bible in this program, again, remember your goal, and that is to think like the original author, and of course his original audience. So that as things happen in the story, you're actually thinking in terms of the story that is being developed, much like a novel. And again, don't worry that I'm comparing the Bible to a novel in the sense of it's true. Let's take the Bible as true and relevant and authoritative, but it's also written as a story, I believe. And so that's what I want you to watch for. Not taking things that you know of in the future and putting them back in, but just letting the story evolve as it moves through and asking, why does he say that here? And what would I have thought there? And so forth. What I want to do before we finish these introductory videos is just mention 3 ideas that will be important in the development of reading our Bible this way. The first is language and culture. I just want you to be aware that I will be, of course, thinking and talking in English. That's my main language. But we will not be studying the Bible in English. We're going to be doing it in Hebrew. And so I'll always be thinking in terms of the original language that was behind the story. And just be ready for me to challenge some translations or even some words that we are so used to. That brings us, of course, to the culture. Be ready again for a culture that the original author thought was normal, but we are going to find very odd. And frankly, there are going to be some stories that, well, there's a talking snake in Genesis 3. These kinds of things that we say, what? And yet the Bible writer is treating it as a normal occurrence. So the Bible writers, are inviting us into their world. And we want to be willing to go into that world and understand it from their point of view. The second thing I want to mention, and this is a tough one because we so much want the Bible to be relevant to us. But remember how literature works. C.S. Lewis once said in one of his essays, "It is the business of literature to be relevant to us." It is not the business of literature to be relevant to us, but for us to be relevant to it. What he meant was, those who read any literature owe it to that literature to do their homework. You can't just drop into a book and expect it to become relevant to you. It's not fair. You need to be relevant to it first and do your homework and do your work to make it relevant, or make yourself relevant to it first. And I believe that's mostly true of Scripture. If we believe the Bible to be true and authoritative, there is no other book in the world that we should devote our time to understand it more than the Bible. So we are going to give ourselves to it first before we ask it to be relevant to us. What I mean by that is we're going to go for its meaning first, and application, if at all, much later. There are times to make the Bible relevant to us, I agree. But first we're going to make ourselves relevant to it. And the last thing I want to bring up, and it's part of each of these, and the reason I do is because it's going to be part of so many conversations in the Bible. We often think that these people, these characters, these godly people in the Bible knew as much as we knew about God. And they did not. Understand that they're going through a left-to-right understanding of God much more than we are, because we live at the far end of the story. So be ready for this conversation, again, even from very biblical people who don't know much about God, but they love Him. And they're comparing Him to what they understand their former gods. You know, they many of them were polytheists before they became believers. And so that conversation of what is this God like compared to the others is going to be much more relevant to our conversations than we're probably prepared to do. So just be ready for that as we go. All right, well, that's enough background. Let's go ahead and begin reading, and we'll talk to you tomorrow after you read Genesis 1 and 2.